Hey, I'm gonna run through a couple exercises for snapping psoas. It's a pain in the butt if you've got this, if you've ever trained abs. You've gotta watch how much hip flexion extension you're going through under a load. I will tell you, for almost everybody that I've worked with, if you have a snapping psoas, if you continue to train your core stabilizers really well, that should improve or even eventually go away. I've gotten mine to almost go away, but I've been dealing with it for like 15 years. They don't always respond to that stuff. Lengthening the psoas doesn't always help. I would typically try strengthening hip flexors, strengthening deep core stabilizers. But if you've done all that and you still got an annoying snapping psoas, here's a couple ab exercises that shouldn't bother it. So you're always good going from the top up. So you can always do like variations of your sliding crunches, either like that, holding the head like that, no issue there. If you want to crunch up and then go side to side, that's not going to bother it. I really like, if I'm trying to work upper and lower, going 90-90, and then you find where it pops. So like that was where mine just popped. I'm gonna stay just short of that, and I'm just gonna kind of come in and out, because the reality is, the whole reason our psoas is popping is because our hip is moving. And so you can get full flexion extension of the lumbar spine, which is actually what the abs are controlling, without moving the hip. So if you get your hips just past the point where they're going to be going into gravity, and you let your low back arch, and then you draw the low back into the table into flexion, and then that's lumbar extension, lumbar flexion, lumbar extension, lumbar flexion, but we never let the hip go past the point where it pops, you don't trigger that. So that's an easy one if you're starting to do that. There's different ways you can add resistance, either by squeezing a medicine ball, or using a band for a different resistance there. Another one that's pretty easy, if you want to pop onto your side, post up on your elbow like this, hand goes over the head, and we're just going to do reverse crunches from below. This shouldn't trigger it because of the angle that the hip is moving. We are getting flexion extension, but it just doesn't tend to bother it. Here's what that looks like from the other side. Just going in and out like that. And then the other way, if you get both your hands underneath your butt and you're kind of reaching more up and out and then down and in, and get that trunk roll, so up and out. And then when you come back, again, so when I go from here to here, my abs aren't doing anything but stabilizing. When people are doing those flutter kicks and shit, that is not really an ab exercise. That's a hip flexor exercise, and your abs are stabilizing like they would in a plank. 4 other movements, which is fine, but it's not really shortening and lengthening your abdominals. So what you want to do is like curl the trunk upward like that. So when I go from here to here, I get a lot of ab flexion, I get a lot of changes in length because my trunk is actually moving. So kind of reach up and out, and then pull, up and out, pull, breathing out as your knees come toward the chest. All those variations typically will not trigger someone's snapping psoas. So try those out. I've got a bunch more. If you're interested, I can do a couple more videos, but that's typically where I'll start. The ab roller wheel is also a good way to work around that, just because the orientation's differently and it's sort of the body moving around the legs instead of the legs moving around the body. Open versus closed chain, that doesn't seem to bother it much either. So let me know what you think.